having that much hypo anyway, so that wasn't a major problem. Time in normal glycemia increased from 19 hours a day to 20.7 hours. So only a 1.7 hour increase in normal glycemia, and HbA1c, very impressive reduction indeed. Right, let's move on to case number 3. This is a 67-year-old gentleman, diabetes for 14 years, on insulin for 6 years. Treatment, glargine, 60 units in the evening, and insulin lisopro with meals. So already on a basal bolus insulin. And that's the profile. Do we like this profile? People sort of looked at it, oh, I don't like this profile. So who's going to volunteer just to tell me what's going on here? Anyone? Yeah, so we've got volunteers. The microphone's coming to you.
There is early morning and night hypos, and much variability, and there is also the median is above the target.
Absolutely perfect. So again, it's quite subtle, that low hypo, isn't it? Is that around midnight, there's a risk of hypoglycemia around midnight. As you say, most of the time, the glucose is above the median. Yeah. Remember, you can set the median according to what you want, and there's quite a bit of variability. So let's see whether you're right. Absolutely spot on. So a red for hypoglycemia around midnight, and then you've got a red for the median and yellow for the rest. So it's high, very high midday, and you've got variability all day, particularly in the middle of the day. So what would you do for this gentleman?
I will increase the glargine dose.
Would you increase the glargine if he's having hypo at midnight?
Because glargine is working over the 24 hours.
Right, okay. So increase the glargine. What else would you do?
He is on glargine and what else?
Lisopro. With meals.
With meals. I will increase the pre-lunch dose, and I will decrease the dinner dose.
Yeah, so I think I completely agree with your comment about increasing the lisopro. I'll be slightly concerned about increasing the glargine because it depends. I mean, you need to know when he's injecting the glargine as well. Is injecting it in the evening, is injecting it in the morning. Glargine in our hands is not always a 24-hour insulin. Sometimes you need to split the dose. And I find it very difficult if they're on big doses to increase the dose further. So remember, he's on 60 units. So what we've done, we split the dose of Lantus. Well, thank you very much for that. So we split the dose of Lantus because once you have very big doses, it can be really difficult to keep pushing up the dose. We split it, the risk of hypoglycemia will decrease, and you can play with the dose much, much better. And we reviewed, just as our colleague told us, review the short-acting insulin. We reviewed the carb counting, so that's absolutely right. So we educated further on carb counting, reviewed the snacks. You know, people love to snack. I like to snack myself. And that's something that you need to ask the patient about. And this is what happened to the profile. So as you can see, hypoglycemia risk much lower. Still, there's a bit of a yellow there, but it's not red at least. The median glucose much improved, and even the variability is better than it was before. And this was sort of the final with the split glargine and carbohydrate counting. You can see still not ideal, but I think you agree with me that this is much better than it was before. And his HbA1c has certainly improved. So this is the before and after. You can see the pattern is not that dissimilar, but everything has just come down very nicely, and it's a smoother profile. Yeah? So that was when we started 65 millimole per mole, and that's the 60. And remember, all these cases I'm showing you are over a relatively short period of time. They are all less than 3 months. So once people get used to this idea, then things can improve. In our experience, you know, we've done a lot of research with this device, is that the longer they use it, the more use they get to it. and they know what to do with their insulin. So in this particular case, time in hypoglycemia reduced from 2.1 hour a day to 0.3, so there's a massive reduction in hypo. Time in normal glycemia increased from 9.5 to 12.6, and the HbA1c fell by 5 millimole per mole, which is still clinically significant. And by the way, I'm not sort of choosing the best cases that we had. It's a mixture of cases, some of them, not very good response, some of them, some response, but every single patient we had a positive response using the AGP. Right, so let's do case number 4. This is a 69-year-old, type 2 diabetes for 16 years. He has got major, and I mean major, fears of hypoglycemia. Very worried about hypoglycemia. On Humalog mix 25, 56 units in the morning and 40 units in the evening. So a decent dose. He's on what? On 196 units of insulin. And that's his profile. I mean, given that he's got major fear of hypoglycemia, it's not that bad, actually. So who's going to volunteer to tell us what's going on here? One more volunteer is required, please. Come on. So I pick on people. I don't want to pick on people. Anyone? Don't let me down. Ah, here we are. Last second, I've been saved by this gentleman.
The mean blood sugar is always high. There's hardly any risk of hypoglycemia. And the maximum is after breakfast, and that needs to be attended to.
Very good. So as you can see, our colleague immediately looked at it and said, risk of hypo, non-existent. Fantastic. It's above the median, so the glucose levels are high, again, fantastic, and there is some variability. It's not sort of disastrous variability, but there is some variability. So going to the traffic light system, hypoglycemia, absolutely no risk whatsoever. It's all green. Median glucose, green in the middle of the night, and then it goes into the yellow, and variability sort of yellow, not that great. So if I ask you, what would you do for this gentleman?
I would increase the morning dose of insulin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one option, I completely agree with you. One option is to increase the morning dose of Humalog, because that will bring that peak down and it will bring the rest of that high median down as well. So that is a very valid point. He's absolutely scared of this because he says, we increased it once and I had a hypo and I don't want to have a hypo. What else can you do? Any other option? So another option that I hear here, like the previous patient that we had, change to 50 in the morning. Again, it's a possibility. Still very worried about increasing this. What else can you have? All these are valid points. I completely agree. Sorry, you said? Diet control, of course. I think you're raising a good point because we tend to forget about the importance of repeating ourselves and talking about diet. So diet control is important, but he's a really very meticulous gentleman. So we're not too worried about the diet here. I like that. I like that very much. So if he's not already on metformin, add in metformin, particularly he's almost on 100 units of insulin. You can reduce insulin requirements. What else? There's one more thing left you can do. Precisely. So if the patient is willing to shift to basal bolus, shift them to basal bolus. Until recently, with the type 2 diabetes patients, we try to avoid basal bolus, but they really cope with it. There's no reason why type 2 wouldn't cope. If the patient agrees, basal bolus is associated with far less hypoglycemia. So I can't remember what we've done here. Yeah, that's what we've done actually. We changed to basal bolus insulin. And of course, you need a lot of education. And essentially, this is where we got with that. So still the median is a bit on the higher side, but remember the time frame is quite short. Basal bolus takes time for people to understand. But no hypoglycemia, he's far more confident, and this was the end result. So the end result, I think, if I have that kind of glucose profile, and as I said, I don't have diabetes, I'll be quite happy. It's the median glucose is on the line or lower, variability is very low, hypoglycemia, not an issue whatsoever. And this is you can see on top, he said he feels champion. This is a term they use in the UK in a particular area in Yorkshire when people want to say that we feel fantastic, feel champion. And this is how he felt. So this was his before and after. And as you can see, switching to basal bolus reduced the whole thing down, less variability. HbA1c fell from 68 to 60 millimole per mole. So summary, time in hypoglycemia hasn't changed, remained 0, no issue. Time in normal glycemia increased by around 4 hours, and the HbA1c decrease was 8 millimole per mole. So I'm going to do the last case before you get the opportunity to have a look at the device. This is a 59-year-old type 2 diabetes for 10 years, on 60 units of Levemir once a day, and on fixed prandial Novorapid 20 units 3 times a day, and also on metformin 500 milligram twice a day. Who's going to volunteer for this one? Got a lady here.
There is no hypoglycemia because Levemir does not cover the 24 hours. So we must give Levemir either twice daily or change to another glargine like this.
Okay, so you're saying there's absolutely no risk of hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
The
and
median
there is
is too high.
hyperglycemia. We must adjust the fixed doses prandial for Novorapid. Like me.
So with our colleague here, 3 sentences, gave me the diagnosis and what we should do for this patient immediately. And it took you how long? 5 seconds to look at the graph? Absolutely right. So let's just talk about the abnormalities. Hypoglycemic risk, non-existent. The glucose is above the median, so it needs sorting, and there is some variability. The traffic light system says that the variability is at night. I'm not terribly convinced. To my eyes, the variability is more midday when it's red. But, you know, it can get it slightly wrong sometimes. It depends what data is looking at. So what we've done in this particular patient, again, high-dose Levemir. Levemir, to me, is not a 24-hour insulin. So we split the Levemir. And as you just said, we taught the patient carb counting because he was on fixed doses of prandial insulin. And let's see whether that helped. Immediately, things came down. The other thing we've done, we increased that metformin. So metformin was 500 milligram BD. We increased it to 1 gram twice a day. Look at that. I mean, this is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Sorry, say. Sorry, Izzy. Exactly. So that's a very good point. Make sure that the renal function is right before you increase the dose of metformin. You're absolutely right. So the hypoglycemia, not a problem. Medium, very good. There's a slight peak in the morning, but it's not something that is sort of bothering me too much. We have made some adjustments, increased his ratio of insulin to carbohydrate, and this was the end result. So before and after went from 75 HbA1c to 52 millimole per mole. And again, risk of hypoglycemia is non-existent. So I would like to thank you at this stage, but we haven't finished yet. So one thing I would like to demonstrate to you is how complicated it is to take a reading of glucose. So this gentleman here has got the sensor on already. Yeah, so the sensor is on his arm, and can you tell us what your glucose level is?
Yeah, sure.
So switch it on. Done. Let me just say. 96.
Yeah, 96.
So that's it. This is how you check it's really very, very simple. So I think we've got around 10-15 minutes. You can see the devices. There are some devices here. Is that correct? Yeah. So you can see them because, I mean, one thing is to see it on the screen and one thing is to see it yourself. So before we do that, any questions or comments? Do you have any questions? Yeah. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I mean, all the time, can you see the trend arrows on the screen, and how you interpret the trend arrows?
Oh, okay. So through trend arrows. So a few things I need to tell you about. The trend arrows, it can show you that it's moving too quickly, or, I mean, if the arrow is going like that, there's no change from previously. Or it's slightly going down, or it's going down big time. So that is alerting the patient that your glucose is heading down very, very quickly. Recheck it or do something about it. One thing that the company says that if you get a hypoglycemic reading with the device, double check with the capillary glucose, just to be on the safe side. In our experience, they match very, very well. But those are the recommendations that if, you're feeling hypo, again, check with the capillary glucose. Okay? But, I mean, what was very interesting, so patients told me about their experience because some patients bought the device and they were initially skeptical, they weren't sure about it, so they kept checking their glucose, capillary glucose, and then they came back with some beautiful correlations between what they got on the device and what they got on the capillary glucose. And the correlation was very, very good. So they felt much better that now we can rely on it, it's not a problem. But the arrows help you that way. Yeah. Let me just get you the microphone.
What is the rationale behind automatic checking of blood sugar every 15 minutes? And does this affect the lifespan of this device?
So this is a very technical and good question. The reason for the every 15 minutes, because you can make the AGP far more reliably if you have the check every 15 minutes. So you do get 96 readings a day. So you get the AGP profile is far more reliable. Does it affect the lifespan of the device? No. The sensor switches off after 2 weeks. The sensor could last slightly more, but it switches off, it's programmed to switch off. So it is not that, I mean, for instance, if a patient decides to check the sugar 20 times a day, it doesn't affect the sensor itself. Okay, so essentially, it doesn't affect the lifespan of the device at all. But the 15 minutes rationale for that is because it's much easier to construct a reliable AGP with that kind of reading. Yeah. I'll run to you.
So this device measures the interstitial glucose. Now, what we have now as normals are venous blood glucose. Now, how do these two correlate? That's one question. Second question is the site advice now is behind the arm, upper arm. What about the other sides? Are there any correlation between these two?
Lovely questions. The question about measuring interstitial glucose, you're absolutely right. It's not capillary glucose the device is measuring, so there is a lag. There is a lag with all CGM devices, but the beauty about this device is that the lag is the shortest, it's around 10 minutes. So there is a 10-minute lag between what you're reading, what the capillary glucose is. But the correlation is there, so it's something, and this is why the company says that if the patient is feeling hypoglycemic, or the device is showing hypoglycemia confirmed with the capillary glucose. So all CGM devices, there is a lag, but the lag in this particular device is shorter because of the technology used. The second question, sorry, what was the second? Oh, the side. So the side this is validated for the arm. Now, we have done a study in pediatric, and the problem with the peds is that they've got very small arms, so you need to have another side. So at this stage, all I can say that for the adult is validated for the arm. Having said that, I have one of my patients, a lady who didn't want to wear it on her arm in the summer, and she did wear it here in the lower back, and readings are exactly the same. But this is, it's this anecdotal evidence. But when it comes to how sort of the device has been validated, is validated for the arm, I'm pretty sure there'll be studies coming out looking at other sites as well. Thank you. Okay, so an opportunity to have a look at the device, and I don't know, we are here. I don't know how you want to do that, so I'll pass that on to you. Yeah. Oh, so.
Yeah, because we have 4 samples.
So there are 4 samples that you can install the sample.
Yeah, we'd like 4 volunteers who would like to install the just to show how easy is it to install.
Would anybody like to install the sensor?
We need 4.
Yeah. We'll start with this gentleman, because I must confess, I did use it myself. I did try it. And the only painful experience is taking it off. That's the only thing.
So you will narrate.
Mm-hmm.
You'll narrate, right? So check.
You cannot take or get this.
Yeah, just let's have a line.
People in the back will need a microscope to see this. But
So now I'll show it on the camera. So we have So we have the sensor. We have for the sensor we have 2 components in the sensor kit. We have the applicator and we have the sensor itself. So the patient, all he has to do is to open the 2 gadgets. We also have, within the sensor kit, we have an alcohol swipe to prepare the application site. So what we do, the first thing we do is we choose the application site first. So, and usually the recommended site for the application is the back of the upper arm. Now, once we apply the alcohol swipe on it, we let it dry for a couple of seconds, and then we prepare the sensor. Meanwhile, we open it, we open the applicator, then we bring, the applicator has on it 1 line in the front, and it has to be aligned with the line that's on the sensor kit here. Can we see it on the camera? Yeah. So once it's aligned, we simply press. It has to be on a hard surface, so that once you press, now that we pressed, we know that the sensor is connected to the applicator, and we simply take it out. And you don't have to press very hard. It's a very easy process. It's a very simple one. And then once the application site is ready, we simply go and There you go, it's applied. Now, we ask the patient, what do you think? Did you feel it?
No, not much. Just like insulin syringe,
So it's
not much pain. No pain.
so it's that painless for the patient. And once it's ready, hold this.
Why you apply on the back of the arm, not on the other sides? This is less traumatic, or?
So the reason why they chose this as a first area is because it's much easier for you don't knock this area too much. So it's sort of mechanical. It's not because it's more accurate or anything. It's sort of mechanical. It's hidden as well and so on. But I'm pretty sure that, as my patient did, people will come up with other areas to experiment with.
So now the sensor is ready. So the next step is to prepare the reader. Now the reader, we have to turn it on first. And usually with any glucose monitoring device, we have to adjust the time and date as well. So the first thing that's going to appear is the date. Now the date is correct. We are the 30th of October. And it's a touch screen device. So we click on next. Now the time, what time is it? It's 3:57. So we adjust the time, 15. 57, then next, and then we decide what's the target range for the patient. So this is usually decided by the healthcare professional and usually not the patient. So let's assume for Mr. What are you diabetic first of all? No. So what would be a target range that you look for as a glucose level? 5.6 to 7.8 is okay. So we click on next, and then this is just some information about explaining how to understand the trend arrow, and next, and then done. Now, what's important to do is to start to connect the sensor to the reader. So we see here when it's a new sensor, it says start new sensor. We click on it, and we simply scan it, and then as you see here, it says, can we see? It says 60 minutes, which means it will take 60 minutes for the reader to connect to the sensor, and after that, the patient will be able to start scanning as much as he can or she can. And that's the whole process. Usually it takes less than a minute, less than 30 seconds to have it ready and running within an hour. So this is now after 1 hour you will be able to scan the first time. You keep it with you.
The thing is that the patient can go for showers and it's not going to be disturb this sensor.
That's correct. It should not be something that affect the daily activity of any patient or any person that's wearing the sensor. In terms of shower, water, in terms of swimming, what was approved is about 1 meter deep and 30 minutes during the swimming period. Otherwise, it's important, like whenever like we take a shower, not to rub it, just to tap it, so that just to realize that we have a sensor on. It's as if it's not there. I am wearing one. Mr. is wearing one. Sometimes we could forget that we have a sensor on. So the patient, to alarm the patient that you do, like keep in mind that you do have a sensor, so that during our own activities we do not just scratch it off. Okay? Thank you. Yeah. Well, the sensor, to remove the sensor, to answer your question, you just take it off, like as you rub, you scratch it off. You pull it off, as simple as this. Yeah, well, he asked if we can put it, but if the patient can apply it himself. The answer is yes. Usually, this kind of devices are made for the patient to be able to apply it himself at home. It's for home monitoring, home glucose monitoring. Okay. So next, okay. So, who's the second one?
Where is it? I'll get it.
So now, okay. Yeah. So now I'll just do it as quickly as possible.
So I think we're sort of overrunning our allocated time. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention and your participation. It's been absolutely lovely to be here. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And myself, I wore one for a week last year. It was not painful. And it's also very good because it makes you test all the time. So I was practicing like مع الايس كريمز كذا السكر يصير مع الحلو مع but this put patients in perspective of their meals. And the most important thing in this machine that I like is the arrow. And the arrow is the machine, is basically the most important thing. It tells you if you're going up or you're going down. If you're going up, you're going to strain from probably eating, or maybe you can go for a walk. And if you're going down, maybe you can reduce your insulin and stuff like that. عندنا سحب الحين والسحب الأخير بعد my last small lecture about insulin initiation. So راح نروح الحين عندنا بالسحب. Alexandra. Okay, good luck. شلون حاطين الكسندرا؟ دكتور علاء عباس. دكتور علاء. دكتور وفيق سابا. وفيق وينك؟ الجائزة الكبرى آخر حاجة. يلا اوكي good luck. مساكم الله بالخير. Thank you for staying. This is the last session before you go home, and we have the biggest draw for the newest Galaxy Edge Note. Okay. Do you have a slide changer? You have it on? So I'm going to talk to you about insulin. I'm not going to say anything that you don't know, just a way to some slides so we can, you have any question we can talk about. You have an experience with a patient you want to talk